My name is Kara Callahan, and I wrote my paper on the consequence of playing sports and how it affected student grades. So, academics are a large part of high school and contribute to what a student will do after high school. A student's high school education is a very important part of their lives and contributes to a large portion of the student's knowledge. It can be difficult for students to achieve in high school because of all the distractions and other events that are going on to their lives. Many researchers say that students develop habits that will follow students for the rest of their lives in school. Athletics are also a large part of high school, and many students participate in them. Students must not only have passing grades, but grades that are above average in high school in order to move on to college, which are usually affected by their athletics. So the problem statement for this paper was that students that participate in sports, especially those who are in more than one sport, can have grades that drastically suffer. Students' focus on academics can decrease, and therefore their grades are not as high as when they are not in a sport. The more hours that are spent out of school focusing on sports could be related to the grades the student earns. So the significance of the problem is after school, most focus is on the secondary education, and students must have skills they need to succeed, and they may not learn them in high school if they're too focused on sports. Once in college, they must have the skills to succeed, such as study skills, time management, and the self-drive to do well. So this leads to the hypothesis that high school student athletes that spend more than 15 hours in practices, watching films, and scouting during the week earn lower grades during sports seasons than compared to when they are not participating in sports. The independent variable for this research was all of the activities that the student participates in. This includes practices, games, tournaments, any function that's set up by the school, watching films, scouting past games or other teams, and going to current games to watch teams. And it includes all of the hours that are spent on these activities. The dependent variable is the lower grades, which are based off of a grading scale of A, B, C, D, and F, and a GPA based on a 4.0 scale. And also the energy of the students will be measured by the amount of hours that they sleep. So there are many different factors that contribute to a student's success. And there are positive and negative associations between sports and academic achievement for the students. Some basic factors that contribute to the difference is success between gender, so boys and girls. And another factor is ethnicity. So, different ethnic groups can have different academic successes or failures. Another factor would be the environment or school size can influence the pressure that students have to do well in sports and academics. Depending on the school, there might be more pressure to be better in one or the other. And then another factor would be teachers, who some push towards standardized tests or focusing on school or giving more attention to students who need it. And then another factor would be family contribution and how much they support a student and motivate them to do well in school and work on school outside of the school. Some positive qualities that can come from participation in a sport is better attendance. It has been stated that students who participate in sports have a general better attendance, and it is also correlated with a lower dropout rate. And this is really important for students that want to go further in their education than just high school. And then some studies have suggested that athletes with lower grade point averages, even if they have a lower grade point average, they have a higher satisfaction in their degree because they participate in sports. Therefore, they are just have a general higher quality of happiness. Some negative qualities that can occur from participation in sports is that athletes take easier courses because they want to get higher grades. So this can be hurtful towards the student because they take an easier class instead of trying hard in a class and actually learning something. Also, participation in sports can take away from the time from the classroom and academic work outside of the classroom. So a student's attention to study is less than if they were not in a sport. Also, they can have a lack of preparation for college because they do not properly know how to approach studying for college, and because they're not focused on their academics compared to other students. Another important topic when looking at a student's success in participation with sports is exercise. So according to a study, people should exercise at least 30 minutes a day, and this is compared to the usual practice for a student, which is 2 hours a day. So it was stated that over 20 minutes of exercise was best for increasing function on decisional tasks, but anything over 60 minutes was too long and had negative influences on those tasks. And this is important because since the practice is usually more than 60 minutes, this can negatively impact perceptual and decisional tasks of the students. So sleep is an important factor that can be in relation to sports participation and academic success because students that participate in sports usually acquire less sleep than those who don't. So sleep is a large factor for adolescents' development on how they think during the day, and it has been seen that those who have a better quality of sleep have a better academic performance. So lack of sleep can contribute to memory loss, tardiness, and aggressive behavior. And it is also confirmed that it impacts absence, suspension, withdrawals, and graduation rates. It can also affect concentration, stress, fatigue, and this is all leads to academic difficulty. And then it has been stated that daytime fatigue has a correlation with a lower grade point average in students. So it's important that they get enough sleep so that they can concentrate in school. So the methods for this research was a pre-experimental design with no control group. All of the students were asked the same questions on how they perform in their classes before and after sport seasons. They also answered questions based on their sleep patterns. All of the questions were in a survey format, and then 2 coaches were interviewed based on their observations of their students during practices and games and all other sports-related activities. So the sample included 13 male students that were all attending Swanton High School in Swanton, Ohio. They ranged in age from 14 to 18 and were freshmen to seniors. They were all on the same basketball team, and the coaches that were interviewed did not work at the school. So there were some validity issues in this research. One was that the students were not selected randomly, and another is that they all participated on the same basketball team, so they all had the same background. And they all had different background situations, so they all came from different environmentally different homes with different support systems. So the average current GPA was a 3.7 and the average GPA from last year was a 3.6. Most students reported grades of A's and B's in and out of sports, and most students said that their grades did not change. But 11 of the students stayed the same, and for the 2 of the students that said they changed, their grades decreased from when they were in a sport to when they were not in a sport. And these are all found in this table here. The average amount of time that was spent on basketball during a week was 25.5 hours, which is an average of 3.6 hours a day. And 5 out of the 13 kids said that they felt like their grades changed during the sports season, and all 13 of them spent less than 5 hours doing schoolwork outside of school. The hours of sleep differed per student. On average, they received around 6.5 hours of sleep during basketball season compared to an average of 7 hours while not in a sport. Out of 13 kids, 6 of them stated that their sleep increased when not in a sport. The coaches stated that the students are involved in academic programs outside of school, for example, in NHS, so they will request to be late to practice so they can get extra help, which is good because they seem interested and want to learn, which contributes to their good grades. They do try, but another coach said that practicing 2.5 hours a day, 6 days a week, makes them tired, and it's probably too long for the kids, and it can negatively impact their grades. So the results from this study support the statement that if a student spends more than 15 hours a week in a sport, then they will have lower grades and it will negatively impact their lifestyle. So the support for this is that the assigned letter grade on average decreased from the students in season to out of season. And the students' grade that did decrease, they usually participated in more than 2 sports during the school year, and that the students also reported that their sleep decreased while in a sport by about a half hour on average, and this is because they were spending more time on other activities and then have to make time for their daily routines as well. So this study is important when trying to understand why adolescents are affected by sports and how they are affected. But this has also many points that can be expanded on for future research. So the length of the study could be expanded, which would potentially give more information on their grades. Students could be followed throughout multiple years to analyze trends through different sports and different classes. The size of the sample could be increased to receive more data, and the sample size could also be increased to include students from different schools in order to get a variety, and in order to include students that participate in different sports, so you can compare all students across all the different sports.